Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode 983. I am Stephen at Edmonton.
Morning, Vancouver.
And Kristen Edmonton.
I have two sick co-hosts. Today.
The swarm got us both.
Fighting colds, not COVID. The cold. Remember the cold? The heady days of the cold. And indeed,
it still sucks. Just not as much as COVID.
I know. It was like, I just remember we just sort of like fought through a cold, and now every time I think, what is this? Is it? And then you test and says, okay, it's not. But people might think it is, and so you stay away.
I did do that very thing.
Yeah. So we'll power through. Given that on this day, folks, Saturday, October 19th, as you're listening to this, it's past that, obviously. But we're recording this, and then we're recording the final part of our Terry Nation Miniscope, which will come out in like 3 weeks, because today it's part 2 of our Terry Nation Miniscope, featuring the chase. Yep, we get to talk about the chase again. Mission to the Unknown. Which, you know what? I don't remember if we ever talked about that in a Miniscope, because I know Derek Martin has directed it, but obviously we couldn't see it to talk about it. I don't know what we did back in those days when we just imagined it, I guess. And then... and
unless the student director of it goes on to work for Doctor Who and gets 2 more episodes, he won't be in the Miniscope either, or she. I don't remember which it is.
I don't know who directed those. Maybe we should find out who directed like Downtime and
Bill Baggs.
Get Bill Baggs in the Miniscope.
Probably him. I mean, he probably is, if you're going to count those, then he is legitimately probably part of a Miniscope.
I think we'll invoke the Keith Bogue principle on that.
All right.
Which means to say that we just don't want to talk about it. Also, Daleks Master Plan, only episodes 1 through 5 and episode 7. We will not even mention the episodes that we will mention a little bit about the episodes that he was not credited for. But so there you go. That is later on this episode of the podcast. To start off, though, follow up on on Norton Gate. As I'm calling it, not really. Where last week we reported that Ncuti Gatwa was on the Graham Norton Show. They recorded it on the Thursday, as they usually do, and Gatwa says, "Yep, shooting season 3 of Doctor Who in 2025," and everyone picked up on that, saying, "Oh, you said it on the Graham Norton Show," and then the Graham Norton Show came out, and those comments weren't there. And people invented their own stories and stuff like that. But apparently, it wasn't to be censored. It was just sort of like to punch up the comment or something.
That's what I was thinking. Like
what it was.
Stuff like this is just standard. Where if it's not flowing enough, if it just kind of stalls because of the way he says it or whatever, you're gonna trim bits of it, pieces of it, or it just might be to get it to time, right?
I don't know if they're that worried about time on the Graham. Well, maybe they are a little bit. It's sort of like 45 minutes, give or take a little bit. I know that there was a bit of a joke when Gatwa sort of said the Christmas special is coming out at Christmas, and then Miranda Hart says, "Oh, is that when?" So they made a joke out of it. I'm wondering if maybe there was a bit of a lull when Ncuti was like going through the production schedule of Doctor Who.
Or it could be self-censorship on the part of the Graham Norton Show, going, "Yeah, we don't need the trouble from this," and just yank it out.
Or it's perhaps that no, Doctor Who has not actually renewed yet, which it isn't, because Russell T Davies has long said that there won't be a decision about season 3 until season 2 has gone out, and anything that anyone says is putting the cart before the horse. That could also be it.
Yeah, like BBC officially not censoring it is different than RTD maybe getting on the horn with Graham Norton and saying, maybe you could change that, love. Like, as a nice little suggestion between friends.
Not quite accurate.
Not that happened, I have no idea. I'm just saying there's informal ways that could happen too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the Mirror picked up on the Daily Mirror. Nicola Methvin, who is some kind of like TMZ with celebrity deaths, isn't usually far from the mark when it comes to Doctor
It's really
Who.
annoying.
Yeah. Anyway, the Mirror posted a thing about this too, and even perhaps Gatwa's own future might be up in the air because a source tells Deadline, according to this Mirror article, that he might not be long for the job. End quote. And as he explores other roles, so that is also a thing. Either way, we probably won't see a new Doctor Who series until 2026 or 2027 at this rate, which is ridiculous.
Look at it from Gatwa's point of view. You're newly quite famous and you're quite young. Well, why wouldn't you do other stuff? Like, that'd be crazy not to.
I suppose so. It's a lot of work making Doctor Who, especially as they did for seasons 1 and 2. Back to back like that. Like that's pretty much an entire uninterrupted 18 months of television work on the same thing.
I wouldn't blame the guy if he tried.
Yeah. Anyway, Chris, do you have thoughts on this at all as we fight through head colds? But
I don't even know. I'm trying not to think about stuff like this because it gets blown out of proportion so quickly.
And we have much more immediate negativity to worry about.
I suppose so. Happy Election Day at BC.
I like the remarks how nobody from Doctor Who was allegedly involved in this this change of wording or whatever because he's there to promote the importance of being earnest, not Doctor Who. So there were no Who handlers.
Who handlers?
Hoondlers, as they're known.
Hoodlers.
Who handlers?
Yeah.
Who handlers?
Yeah.
Gotta say it like Christopher Walken. And then so I mean, whatever. I'd still like to throw a little trust his way that yes, it's going to happen. Yes, it'll be there. But maybe he just spoke at the wrong time.
Yeah, he's great at that.
Yeah, that's right. Drunkenly revealing that he's Doctor Who to someone in a bathroom in Glasgow shortly after he was cast. After all,
Complete strangers as
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Tom Holland is a rep for doing this with the Marvel movies of just spoiling stuff months ahead of time.
Right. I think I read that about him not being basically.
Oh, actually, Mark Ruffalo does too, or did.
Because what do they know? They're just actors for crying out loud.
Well, given the propensity for actors to never actually watch the stuff they're in,
Well,
and therefore have no concept of what importance other people might place on that work or whatever.
I don't know if Marvel does this, but Star Wars certainly does because I've read about it, is they'll just give the actors their specific set of lines, which must be really frustrating as an actor, but they'll just only really know the bits and pieces they're in, and that's it.
Yeah, and imagine like being an actor and saying, here are your scenes and only your scenes. Here are your lines and only your lines. As you can see, we're shooting this on a green screen, so you don't even know what you're acting against. It just feels like a reality show. Acting does sometimes.
What's my motivation? They throw a giant bag with a dollar sign on it.
There's your motivation. Now look at that tennis ball. Let's go. Yeah.
Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, Hollywood, baby, which is what the the world that Doctor Who circulates in now. There were some interesting comments. The MIA television festival is happening in Rome right now, which I find amusing that it's MIA because television might be MIA. But Catherine Pope of Sony Pictures TV had a panel, the keynote panel there, and they talked about a lot of things, but the key focus here is that she was upset about the length of time between seasons on TV shows and how it's just become longer and longer. Because a lot of it is because, quote unquote, data-driven companies have slowed down the series renewal process. This ties in directly to what we're talking about Doctor Who. They're waiting to see how season 2 performs before they even think about season 3. And she says it is absolutely untenable. It's not fair to the fans. This is something we are all over, and we come at this from being fans first and foremost. The experience of watching 8 episodes and then 2 years later watching the next 8 is not a good fan experience. Confirmed, honestly. Your
I have
thoughts,
but
yes.
I'd like to have Chris go first because to spare his voice.
Yes, Chris, use what's left of your voice and your closest to your mute button to give us your thoughts on this.
I think the statement's pretty obvious. I mean, even if it's if we take Doctor Who for example, it's 8 episodes a year, 9 with the Christmas special. Just the gaps in between, like even if it's consecutive years, that's still 44 weeks in between. If it's at the same time every year or whatever, but it isn't always even that. So of course the gaps are massive and destructive and disruptive, and nobody. I'm sure the production teams don't like it, but they're not the ones in charge. At least not for that decision.
Warren.
Yes, so I think she's right, and I completely agree with the gaps between seasons. I would go further and say that TV has always been something of a factory, and that is actually a positive. Like, I don't know if we should go back to the time of 26 episode churnouts, but a little bit more and a little bit more frequent would certainly help. Everybody wants the stuff to look like movies. It doesn't have to look like movies. Like, okay, I'm talking like an old person because I remember when it didn't, but if the stuff people are watching is The Office and Seinfeld and old stuff and Abbott Elementary, which doesn't look all that great. I'm not to criticize it; looks fine. It's a TV show, but that's what people want to see, right? Most people aren't going out of their way to see prestige stuff anymore because you got to wait forever, and who cares? And there's these giant gaps which are necessary because it costs so much and it takes so long to make. Just crank the stuff out. Some of it will be good. That seemed to work for 50 years. Why not do that again?
No, I mean it's not that different for films either. Like look at gaps in I don't know.
That's true. Yeah,
the Avengers movies or whatever. Anything prestige is going to have, if it's multi parts, it's going to have massive gaps in between. And I don't know about anyone else out there, but the older I get, the harder it is to remember what the hell happened last time.
Oh, definitely. And also remember what
the propensity of shows and whatever not having. Last time on Days of Our Lives, wrap up little reminder things. Like, I'm not gonna, number one, I don't have the time to go back and watch what came before again. And number two, if it's been 2 or 3 years, I'm not gonna remember. So, throw me a frickin' bone here.
Yeah.
Well, and to go further than that, and it's not really fair as a Doctor Who fan with 60 odd years of backstory that I know, which I know puts people off, and I've told them just start here, and then if you like, go back. But like Ashoka, I keep, cracking the whip on this one, but I'm not watching God knows how many seasons of Clone Wars and 4 seasons of Rebels and whatever else as homework to understand what the hell is going on. I'm just not going to do it. That's stupid.
Yeah, and it's it's tough for an audience to the demands of the streamers, like Netflix, sort of famously you got to watch this in the opening weekend, and then we'll see if it's going to be if we'll renew it or not. Well, why would we want to rush back to a show that we haven't seen in 2 years to watch 8 episodes really quick when we probably it reduces the incentive to watch it right away, because if you're going to wait 2 years, I was ready a year ago to watch season 2 of your show, so I'm gonna wait to watch this because I have now filled my life with other shows and stuff while you have been busy not making the show that I want to watch every single year at the same time.
And it's streaming in general, but it was pioneered by Netflix. The whole rush. Oh,
and
let's skip those end credits. Let's skip those opening credits. Let's skip to the next episode. Let's get that next one crammed down your throat. Sorry, I swore there.
All right.
Fair.
But it's passion. No, it's just it's everything's a right utter mess. And no, I don't think we necessarily want the return to 26 episodes per season, because how much filler and trash was there?
Lots. There was a lot. Yeah,
but that's also what TV is for: is filler and trash. Honestly.
A little bit sometimes,
a little bit. Yeah. But you think of TNG, and there's a lot of junk in TNG, just because they had to fill those 26 episodes per season.
Yeah,
and I don't know that I want that. So I what's the happy medium? 16, 13, I don't know.
I'd say 15, something like that.
There's got to be a number out there that works for everybody.
I was actually going to cite TNG as well because the whole gap between time, especially if there's a cliffhanger, which often there is. Like, remember when Best of Both Worlds, and this is an unfair comparison, but when Best of Both Worlds Part 1 came out, and then you get that massive, awesome cliffhanger, and you have to wait, I think it was 3 months to see to September or October, whenever the next episode came out. That was excruciating, but it was just excruciating enough, right? It did what it was supposed to. If there's a big box,
keep watching,
here's The Boys, which I quite like, but also doesn't need to do as much money as it is. They had a big climactic, oh my god, everybody's screwed ending of this season, and I gotta wait a year, probably more, to find out what I'm gonna have long since forgotten by then what actually happened.
I know that Russell T Davies said this on a radio interview close to the launch of Disney Doctor Who. And he said, if Disney doesn't want to do it anymore, then we'll go back to making ghost stories in closets again. And I think
great, please do.
It would be great. And I think TV needs to step back from, we need to make this a movie to compete with movies. Because let's face it, people aren't going to movies as much anymore. People are just staying home to watch it on TV. So you're not needing to really compete with the Marvel blockbusters anymore. You can make stories for television that don't have to have the same scope of a movie, but contained to 45 minutes, because it feels like you're cheating the story that you're trying to tell, and you're trying to compete with something that you're not really competing with. I think you can still tell great stories on TV that might be closer to ghost stories in closets than, instead of universal invasions or something like that. They get solved within 32 minutes or something of an episode of Doctor Who.
Also, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, even the movie landscape has changed with how quickly things hit streaming, whether it costs you $30 to watch it or not. It's still there on streaming so fast that going to the cinema is, that's not even part of any of a lot of people's equations anymore.
Yeah. For instance, I think Steven has an inkling of where I'm going with this. Joker Faliad is coming to streaming, I think at the end of this month, like in about a week or so.
Yeah.
And because it tanked so hard. Now, if you'd taken, and this is just me theorizing here, that concept, which is basically a 70s and 80s kind of a thing, shot it on, wait for it, 4:3 SD, made it a variety television show like was made at the time,
right,
with those stars, I think it would have been more successful. It couldn't be less successful. So I think it would be more successful as that. And actually, it would be more successful artistically if you did that way.
We've been mentioning Next Generation, and it amuses when you think about it. Like, they made 26 episodes, and each episode is like 45, 50 minutes a year. That is equivalent to 52 half-hour episodes. They actually made more episodes, more content, I hate to use that word, of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager in one season than they did Doctor Who in the 1960s. Like, that's bananas. Shocking to think, because we think about Doctor Who in the 60s when they had like 45 episodes a year. It's like, well, yeah, but think about it, you're only making 25 minutes. You are making one episode a week, which essentially is what they were doing in Star Trek land. Of course, the bonus of a lot of these shows is that they have standing sets, a large cast. They can
and a bigger budget than Doctor Who in the 60s.
Yeah, but
sure.
even it
wasn't great, but yeah,
I would love to cost out how much some of those filler episodes of Next Gen cost, because they would have like maybe one guest star, but no new costumes, no new sets. All the visual effects plates were already done. They just have to change the backgrounds. Like, it's only like time, like basically staff time. That's all that goes into the budget.
The upside is you get character development.
They're still amortizing those standing sets across those filler episodes, though.
Yeah, which is why Doctor Who has always been a tough show to make, let's face it, since day one. It's a great concept, sure, but it means that you only have one standing set, and the optimum goal of that one standing set is to leave that set and get onto the story as soon as possible. You know?
And how many stories don't even use that set to begin with?
Yeah, I know.
McQuair, many.
Oh, I know. Every Cartmel script edited story, like, oh man, you just wasted 5 precious minutes you could have told on your one standing set. What are you doing?
Didn't the set look like garbage by that point?
Yeah, it was literal garbage. Yeah. What this means to say is that it's probably gonna be like, I had initially thought that maybe Twiblats, The War Between the Land and the Sea, would be a stopgap between season 2 and 3, like maybe in the fall like 2025, like next year. Now I'm thinking it's 2026. I'm thinking it's going to be spring of 2026, and 2027 is when we'll get the next Doctor Who season if we're lucky.
Good golly, it's going to sit on the shelf for a year or two.
Yeah,
it's already shot.
I know.
And cut together presumably by this time.
It's ridiculous. I mean, how can you go? Oh well, let's wait a whole year for. There's 5 weeks and then it's gone. Well, I guess we'll get on to something like as I said initially. Eventually, people will just sort of like drift away because there's no incentive to keep with a show. And it's not the people who are making it, because it takes about as long to make an 8-episode series now as it did a 13-episode season in 2005. And it must suck. It must suck. I mean, at least Doctor Who and other shows that have a weekly broadcast schedule, at least they have their show being maintained in the public eye for that long. Whereas like Netflix or something, you make a show for a year and a half and they just drop it in one weekend. That's the awful bit, is where it's like, oh, well, that's great. All my hard work, and it's dropped on a weekend and no one ever talks about it.
And you can argue from a production standpoint that this is part of why Survive Till 25 is a thing, and that and overspending and all the rest of it in Hollywood, because people don't have the job security they used to have. If you worked on a 26-episode show a year, you pretty much had a full-time job for that year, essentially. And it was never as stable as, say, I don't know, working as an accountant in an office or something, but it was always a lot more. There was a middle class of film and TV because of this, and there's way less of that now, specifically with writing, but with almost all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a terrible, terrible industry that we live in, which is why we often talk nostalgically about the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, we're ridiculous.
Because it seemed to be an honest profession back then, wasn't it? It wasn't even. It had its own problems, but anywho, on to other stuff. Hey, you can now translate anything you want into Gallifreyan thanks to a Gallifreyan translator on the Doctor Who TV website.
And I did it.
Yeah, but I guess I don't know how to say it. The Gallifreyan is like the little pictogram things that sprung up through the modern series. And I've never really caught on to it, I have to admit, because I don't know what these things mean. They're just
it looks cool.
Yeah, just a bunch of to yours, our episode title that Warren chose, spherical hieroglyphs.
Yep.
Which is exactly what they are. So anyway, let's do one with Radio Free Skaro. I was thinking, oh well, there it is. 3 circles with things. Sorry, go ahead. It said there's a circle and there was some stuff in it, and then another circle, and so basically what I've come to learn is that each circle is a word in Gallifreyan, according to this thing.
All I get is some words here are not translatable into Gallifreyan. Please revise and try again.
What did you put in?
I put in a bad word.
The one that he mistakenly uttered earlier in this episode.
I see. So. I put in there's no such thing as official pretend, and then there's 6 circles. So yeah, you're right. Each goes to the letter. So
yeah, and now I'm looking
or 7 circles, I guess.
Yeah, I'm looking at the official, because the default text is the sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior, and which is on the 15th Doctor song Screwdriver, and I'm trying to match up the symbols to that, and I don't know where the top is and where some of the symbols look the same. The
one with the circle with the Pokeball at the bottom.
Yeah,
has to be that's the only thing that shows up 4 times.
4 times.
Leading Gallifreyan linguists say the circle with the Pokeball.
We're getting there. That's what they said when they discovered the Rosetta Stones too. But so anyway, have fun with that. You can post your clips online. Your words, stuff. You could say, when is Doctor Who coming back, and put that into there. Why is Doctor Who being delayed until 2027?
Was it censored by the BBC?
You could put that all in Gallifreyan and put it up there if you really want. But a couple more things before we get to the Miniscope. A follow-up to Graham Kibblewhite's wonderful Adventures in Type and Space is coming out on November 25th. It is the Sid Sutton collection. Sid Sutton is the one who did the neon logo and the Starfield title sequences of the 1980s.
Yes.
He was in ill health when they made the initial book and sadly died before it came out. But Graham was in contact with his family after that and got a whole treasure trove of wonderful stuff. Let me tell you, the trailer for this was just gorgeous.
It was pretty great.
Sort of 3D looking neon logo. Anyway, there's a whole new thing coming out for pre-order from 10 Acre Films. It's only £8. All proceeds go to UNICEF, which is Bernard Lodge's chosen charity. Bernard Lodge, of course, did the 1970s title sequences. This is instantly going in my cart because this looks amazing. I love the neon logo so much. And
I agree.
To see a book dedicated to that is just wonderful. So that's coming. Links in the show notes. RadioFreeScar.com to get that. Finally, in the news, Alvin Rakoff has died at the age of 97. Rakoff was born in Canada and was sort of famous in Doctor Who circles for marrying Jacqueline Hill, who of course played Barbara Wright in Doctor Who. But he also was a TV director in his own right and discovered and basically pushed forward the careers of Sean Connery and Alan Rickman, which is amazing, and lived a hell of a life after being born in Toronto. So there's multiple Canadian connections to early days of Doctor Who, because of course he was a contemporary of Sidney Newman as well. So there, 97 though, hell of an innings for Alvin Rakoff.
Impressive.
Indeed. Well, that's our news. Now, finally, kids, it's time to talk about part 2 of the writing career of Terry Nation in the Miniscope.
Just as I thought. A Miniscope. Now, this is outrageous. Who is responsible for this device?
Welcome back. It is part 2 of our mammoth Miniscope on Doctor Who writer Terry Nation in this week's thrilling installment.
Oh boy.
We'll be covering the final stories of the 1960s that Terry Nation wrote for Doctor Who. That being The Chase, Mission to the Unknown, that one-story epic that served as a teaser to the 12-part epic, The Daleks Master Plan, which had a storyline laid out by Terry Nation, but only 6 episodes, that being 1 through 5 and 7, the Christmas special, whole or in part written by Terry Nation. That's what we're going to cover today, kids. Some of us did all the homework.
No, one of us.
You know who that is. It's me, because I'm a sucker.
No, actually, you did extra work to round out the teacher. Also, you, because I watched all the stuff.
That's true.
So
there's an apple on my own desk that I put there to try to suck up to the teacher, which is me. Warren watched the bare minimum. Didn't go anywhere near the ones that didn't have Terry Nation as writer.
The bare minimum.
Yeah.
Or one could say followed the remit.
The requirements. Yeah, you hit the exactly. Chris did even less than that.
Did you get all 25 pieces of flair?
I love how you nation shame us.
I am nation shaming. That's true.
Or basically you're saying, whoa, you're not masochist too?
See how quickly I watch freaking Planet of the Daleks after this.
That's, well, probably
yeah, just color alone I'm looking forward to.
I know, color, existing, that sort of thing. I know this is the only bit of the Miniscope where there's an episode or 6 that don't exist for Terry Nation. So So that'll be interesting. But hey, we'll get.
I watched Recon, so come on.
I know. This is something Warren never does. So well done, Warren.
Not a fan of Recons, no.
No, it's. I mean, they do with what they can. We'll talk about that though when we get to those episodes, because first we have to talk about The Chase. So the Chase was immediately commissioned, more or less, right after the Dalek invasion of Earth went out and seemed to be quite a big success. And they thought, well, what do we do with them now? So, I don't know.
And they continued that through production.
Yep.
Let's have another Keys of Marinus, why don't we?
We'll just have, there we go. We got an adventure. Even Terry Nation was like, what do we do with these guys now?
I called this a production design clip show, because that's essentially what it is. It's like, what do we got lying around? Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It's basically the story of the chase. The plot of The Chase is
Such as it is.
There's a chase. There you go. Daleks chase the Doctor and eventually catch him. There's a fight with other non-marketable Dalek-like creatures and the mechanoids, and it all ends with actually a very charming a goodbye scene that is mostly not written by Terry Nation. So we don't even have that to thank.
It's a little more coherent than Keys of Marinus, because Keys of Marinus you expect to have a through line, and this you're like, whatever. let's just enjoy this car crash as it goes.
Right.
Yeah, I did watch the Behind the Sofa for this one.
Oh, fun.
Thankfully, this is part of the season 2 box set. So yeah, Peter Purvis, who was on that, was very, very happy to talk about it, given it was his first story.
That's true. I haven't watched the Sofa.
He said his section was with Maureen O'Brien and Carol Ann Ford, and he said to them, he's like, I joined at the end of the story, but I'm also in episode 3, but I'm completely unrecognizable.
Completely. Like an Anthony Ainley disguise. Can we just point out the wonderful nature of 1960s weekly television, which is what this was back then, in that you had an actor come in for a role in episode 3 of a story and then said, you know what, you'd be perfect for this new character who we're going to have at the end of the story, who we haven't even cast yet, even though it's only 2 weeks until we start production, which is hilarious. I love that so much. It is so fly-by-night television, and though you could, when you hear how TV is made back then, you realize why they never kept any of it, because it was just like
pretty charitable. Actually,
it is a little bit, just because it's like theater on the TV. We're only recording it because it's just a more efficient way of playing it back, essentially, instead of doing it all live.
Some of the chase is improv on the TV, because there's a lot of waffling about for some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's it's fascinating when you look at the chase, because if you were to not know anything about the chase and the Daleks Master Plan and were to read the basic plot lines of each, you'd think that they're just the same, but they are clearly not the same. The Daleks Master Plan is way better, and it's also better directed, because Douglas Camfield was directing that and Richard Martin is directing the chase, and this will not turn into another Richard Martin directed fiasco on this pod. We've already done that on Richard Martin Miniscope, but
in rewatching the chase, because I don't think I've watched it in I don't know how many years.
Yeah, I haven't either.
There's definitely some capable stuff from Martin in there.
Capable stuff.
It's not all bad stuff. Yeah, some nice camera moves and pans and things like that I wouldn't necessarily expect in 60s Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind the reveal, even though they do it twice, of, okay, here's where we actually are. Like, but that the technical finesse of that isn't so bad. It's kind of a dumb thing as a trope for the writer to do twice, but here we go.
Yeah, he does play the hits again, doesn't he? Yeah.
Terry Nation, that's his MO. His MO is reusing, whether it's plots or names or whatever. There's no shortage of examples.
No, it is fascinating. Like around the same time, I think is when the Dalek movie came out. I don't know when I think it came out after the chase. I think, in theaters. I'm not know when the exact release date of that was.
Yeah, I don't know when it was filmed, but they did use a couple props from the movie in the chase.
Right.
I was going by what the infotext was saying. And then I'd never ever noticed this before, but the ones that were pointed out via the infotext were just like two Daleks stationary, one either side of a door.
Yep.
And the whole bottom had just been cut off.
Yeah,
the skirt had just been cut off, and they're just sat there on the floor, immobilized, because
they're giant in the TV movie. I mean, in the movie, because they roll around. There's different Dalek things in there. I'm more speculating on like when Dalek Mania was, because I think the Dalek Mania kind of peaked around Christmas into 65.
64. Yeah.
The movie comes out, and that's kind of, honestly, in retrospect, that movie is kind of like at the okay, we're just now about tired of the Daleks, and the ratings for the chase are good. They're in the they finished as high as seventh in the week for the chase, but like the numbers are less, which I suppose is because it's airing in May and June. But I feel like the chase and the movie at around the same time kind of spell the end of Dalek Mania in a way, like that the giddy heights of it, because I think by the time the second movie comes out, it doesn't do as well. It's in 66 I think as well, which is after the Daleks Master Plan. So when you think about it, you've got Christmas 64 Daleks, spring 65 Daleks, movie Daleks, back to TV Daleks again over the Christmas season of 65 into 66, and then another movie. That's so many. Like, you think you had superhero fatigue in when Marvel started streaming shows and stuff. Just think about 5 different Dalek movies and or stories in the space of a year and a half. It's way too much.
I don't think I'd ever looked it up before, but just having a peek at release dates for the 2 Cushing films, they were roughly a year apart.
Yeah, crazy, right? They would make them in so quick.
Late
fashion,
August 65, early August 66.
There we go. Yeah. Anyway, if you were to watch the chase, you could see why maybe even Terry Nation was tired of the Daleks, because it's sort of like, what do we do? What if
half not in it? Like, they just kind of show up to chase them, essentially. Right?
What if Daleks showed up on the Empire State Building? What if Daleks showed up on the Mary Celeste?
But their whole job is curses foiled again. Basically, right? So
what if the Daleks showed up in a haunted house of the mind?
Oh, that's the worst one.
But it turns out that it's not in the mind. It's in Ghana.
It's in Ghana
in 1996.
Or something.
What if the Daleks met up with someone who was also like the Daleks? What if they landed on a planet that had a bunch of fungo? Anyway, it's just like, what if we did this?
What if they had a fake doctor?
What if we had a fake doctor?
That was screwing with my head, because I knew it was happening, but it's still, because of the low resolution of television at the time, I'm just like, I can't tell, is that him or not? What the hell's going on?
Right.
Which I guess was probably the point.
Their hope, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chase is just a bunch of running around. It's basically the Daleks want to catch the Doctor for revenge or something. They don't like him, and they basically, over the course of the chase, they gradually catch up with him until they think, well, we got to fight him, and so they stop and randomly land at the Mechanist planet.
And then, of course, you got Nation, just for the sake of the plot, pulling out of his butt. The whole the computer takes 12 minutes to reset before we can disembark.
Yeah,
before we can take off again.
That's kind of a thing that he tries to work into Daleks Master Plan, but it kind of gets written out in that aspect of things, which honestly is an interesting concept, because it prevents your lead character and your lead characters from just immediately running off. Oh no, we have to stay and recharge the batteries for 12 minutes. It's like an EV. It's like you're driving your EV or something on a road trip.
It's not like it was never revisited insofar as, the Doctor lands in Cardiff on the Rift in Utopia.
Yeah.
And there've been plenty of chases within, like, essentially half of RTD's run is the chase compressed down to 10 minutes. When you're like, there's a lot of from and inspired by the chase, you know what I mean? Like wacky stuff.
Yeah.
There's an absolute heavy crossover in the Venn diagram for just plot structure for Keys of Marinus and the chase and the Daleks Master Plan. But at least there's a little bit of variety in the pacing and duration. Insofar as, so you look at Marinus, for example, so you've got like one episode set in each area, except the last 2 are in, whatever city.
Yeah.
And then here you've got all the stuff, but there's some things that are like multiple locales in one episode. And then Master Plan's a little more spread out.
Yeah. And the chase is distinctly, a chase through time and space. They're going back and forth through time, and
which conceptually is fine.
I guess so. The Daleks somehow have a time machine, which is fine, I guess.
Yep. Which out of nowhere.
Yep. It's fascinating to think that, we think, oh, wow, when the monk has a TARDIS, it's like, what a revelation. But really, well, the Daleks had one the previous week, so how big of a deal is it really,
Both looks really cool and is kind of cooked up out of nowhere, like you said.
Yeah.
But it actually kind of looks neat, like the way they designed it.
Well, and then the way it was shot was let the side down a little bit,
yes.
but seek out the Terry Nation Army. Here's everything wrong about episode 5 of The Chase video, which is out there somewhere on their YouTube channel. Because it doesn't work as well. It kind of reminds me of the Assignment Earth, the last episode of season 2 of Star Trek, where they just sort of, the Daleks just somehow have a time machine. It's like, we just saw using the slingshot effect. We're back in 1968 now for some reason. It's just like, was it that easy the whole time?
The thing is, though, I don't think, just to branch off in this Trek for a second, I heard Star Trek 4, did they do that? No, they didn't do it with First Contact because they go through some wormhole that the Borg created. So they've used it fairly sparingly, and they might have used it in Voyager and Enterprise. I just haven't watched enough to tell you, but I don't think they have otherwise. I don't think TNG ever did.
No, I don't think they did. But the fact that they went through a big thing in Star Trek 4 to get back to 1986, whereas literally the camera fades up and the Enterprise is already orbiting.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's also hilarious, yeah.
Slingshotting around the sun, why isn't everybody doing this?
Right.
Like, why isn't time a nightmare because of all the future guys coming back?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as that goes, the calculations, I guess, might be the limitation for...
True. There's a lot of broken ships that just dive into the sun. We're going back in time. Oh, maybe not.
Oh, we missed it. Didn't quite time our jump.
Only Spock could do those.
That's
guesses.
true. He means that your guess is better than anyone else's facts.
That's true.
Anyway, the Beatles turn up in episode 1 unless you have the North American version, in which case they don't. But
they didn't for me.
Yeah, they did for me. I unwittingly bought the second season 2 set because I was impatient. Then I realized well after the fact that, oh wait, that's right, I got the Beatles version now. So
yeah, you got the better one for sure.
I do.
And of course, that was a missing clip from Top of the Pops?
Top of the Pops, yeah. It's the only. Somewhere else is the
survives
top
because
of
Doctor Who.
Yeah, this is Top of the Pops podcast. They're probably just, thank God for Doctor Who for once. That could provide us with a missing clip of it, Top of the Pops. Yeah. The Chase, everyone. The Chase. What if the Daleks did comedy, basically? What if we had a comedy chase?
Oh my God.
They're kind of wacky. Although they're more Dalek-y than they are in the Invasion of Earth.
I suppose. Well, one of them's like,
True. Yes, get on with it.
That's exactly the one I was going to point out. Which, so again, according to the infotext, not in the script, so nothing to do with Nation. So that, whether it was Martin or the voice actor or what, I don't know. And then also one thing I didn't realize was, so the mechanoids were originally supposed to be called the Mechons.
Oh, there's a whole big deal about that. Yep.
And the Dalek lines were recorded before the name change to the Mechanoids.
Yep.
So in episode 6, I think it was, there's a conversation before they get on the lift. The Daleks having a conversation using the word Mechons.
Yeah, there was speculation. Again, go check out Dalek 6388 on YouTube.
Yeah,
they did a whole bunch of videos about this. There could have been a potential copyright infringement because Dan Dare had the name Mechons. So they needed to change that, and that's why they changed even the name of Mechanoids, Mechanoids, as opposed to Onids. So there's a whole thing about that, why they changed it. But you're right, sometimes the little lines slip through all the way to the very end.
I know the Mechanoids were just another thing they were trying to come up with, Mechanoid fever,
or
Mechanoid mania. But they're kind of cool. Like, the production design of them, it's got nothing to do with him, unless he had some input in the design, which I doubt. He probably just wrote a giant sphere with stuff coming out of it.
No,
they're just kind of cool. They kind of look cool.
Yeah,
he had a very, very detailed description, which never made it to the actual prop or outfit, however you want to describe it.
I think they're small. But I think honestly, they looked probably more like Daleks in his draft than what they actually turned out to be. So that's probably the second time that. Ray Cusick is, or maybe no, it wasn't Ray Cusick. I think it was
John Wood.
John Wood had designed this one that perhaps turned Nation's idea.
I can't decide what bugs me most about the chase. Is it the worst Dracula in film history.
Terrible.
Just the worst.
Terrible.
Or is it the Empire State Building scene that goes on way too long and is really stupid to begin with?
If you want to go down the building, you just fall off the building. You're going to look after
We
him.
want to get down. We want to get down in 30 seconds. Yeah.
I'm from Alabama.
Oh man.
Is it those two? I'm gonna say they're not fish guys, but that was the closest I could think of.
The
like,
Iridian
those guys in the first
Iridians.
couple episodes. Yeah, they were just really irritating. like I was rooting for the Daleks. These guys suck. Frankly,
I do love. Yeah.
One thing that was all nation all the time was that the idea was to have the horror house, whatever, actually be in the human imagination.
That's another line that still stayed through. I think Verity Lambert didn't like that aspect, and so they had it changed. But Doctor Who says that earlier on, like upon arrival. It says, "Oh, this might be in the human mind. That's where we probably are." And then they just don't address it because.
And also, again, like in Keys of Marinus, very, very, very heavy use of the phrase "human beings" multiple times throughout. That really don't need to, like, it doesn't need to be there.
Right. Well, much like the chase, perhaps.
Not perhaps.
One thing, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, Stephen. One thing I really, really, really do like is just the use of the time space visualizer to see what happens with Ian and Barbara. Because it's one thing. It's one thing just to have them on the bus and London 1965 and all that kind of stuff, but to frame it within the time space visualizer as though, because I mean, strictly speaking, in that case, it was always there. They just didn't think or know to access it until now, which I think is kind of cool.
What the visualizer you mean?
To access watching Ian and Barbara on the time space visualizer.
Oh, I see. Okay, I thought you meant.
Like I said, it was something obviously that causally was always a thing. They just didn't know or think to use it to watch them.
Well, no,
until after they had been there, until after they had left in the Dalek ship.
Oh, I see. Well, they only had it in the Space Museum, is what I mean to say, though, because they got it the previous episode. Remember?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Ian and Barbara leaving always being causally.
I see. I see. Right.
Yeah, I think you put a lot more thought into that than Terry Nation did, frankly.
Yeah, well done. Yeah. Or Dennis.
He's like, there's a cheat. We can just do this later.
Yeah. And I know that I think even Nation says, okay, your characters, there's your outro, right? You write your finale for it, basically, I think is what he said, essentially. And I'm just thinking of when Ruby Sunday left the TARDIS at the end of season 1 of Doctor Who, and how the strings just laid it on thick, and we're just trying to make a massive moment out of this for people, for someone we really have only just met, and we kind of know was coming back anyway. And, put that across with the Doctor saying goodbye to the first 2 people he met and flew off with on Earth. I shall miss them. Yes, I shall miss them. Yeah, he
underplays it. I kind of like the way he does it.
It's so underplayed and beautiful.
It is, but he still argues that with
he them, does. But when he doesn't even give them the moment of satisfaction. He's still angry when although we don't even see the end of their argument. That's the tragedy of that whole scene. We don't see how it ended. They probably had a row and he just sort of walked out. But they go in, they argue, and then that's it. And then when we cut back, they've just materialized. We never actually saw the goodbye scene, and it's just silly little fuss spots. It's just like, you're right, Warren. Yeah. He underplays it so well. It's such a gorgeous little scene.
Hartnell fluffs his lines, but he can nail it sometimes.
He really can. Yeah,
he is a professional actor.
That's true.
He is. Yeah, he's
legitimate.
He's a legitimate actor.
Legitimate theater.
Yeah. Yes. No, this pantomime nonsense. Yeah. So the chase, we fondly remember the last 15 minutes of it, having endured the previous 5.5 episodes.
Also, that Lincoln is worse than the one at Disneyland, which is clearly a robot. And actually pretty impressive for 60-year-old technology. But this Lincoln, not so much.
The Lincoln squirrel has been assassinated.
No.
I keep flip-flopping on my opinion of the chase. I think I'm back to not liking it. But
are you back to?
I was always there, and I'm still there. So
yeah.
There's some. I mean, conceptually,
it's got its moments.
There's some stuff I don't mind, and the ending does kind of let you forgive a few of the sins,
but not all of them. I'm looking at you, Haunted House.
All of them.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, things like the Haunted House. I mean, makes no sense.
No,
something like the Mary Celeste. Okay, fine. Nobody actually knows what happened in reality. Why not chuck the Daleks on there as an explanation?
It's like watching episode 3's Company. There's a lot of hijinks.
There is just a bunch of slapstick at the end, essentially. Yeah,
but the whole thing on the Empire State Building, utterly pointless, and Iridius. So yeah. Anyway.
The chase is done. Cutaway.
Yeah. Cutaway?
Yeah.
All right.
Dalek Cutaway. So for those that don't know, when they made Planet of Giants, they made it as a 4-parter. They looked at it and went, wait a second, this is crap. We cannot start a season with this slow nonsense, so let's edit the last 2 episodes together. It became a 3-parter. But at the end of that whole broadcast run, the BBC says, listen, we paid for this many episodes. You gave us this many episodes. There's 1 episode still outstanding that you still owe us. And so they thought, well, we've already contracted all of our main cast. We can make another episode that doesn't have the main cast in it. I know what we'll do, says Verity Lambert, who's about to head out the door. Let's make a 1-episode teaser for this massive 12-part Dalek story that's coming down the pipe in 4 weeks' time. And that's what they did. And that's how Mission to the Unknown, a.k.a. Dalek Cutaway, a.k.a. Serial T/A, a.k.a. Episode 5 of Galaxy 4, because it was made by the same people that make Galaxy 4, came into being. I think each of us watched a different version of this episode for this. Am I right in thinking that?
I watched the animated one.
Okay, maybe we both watched the Ian Levine animated one, which honestly...
was that the Levine one?
I think
whatever one you supplied to me.
I think it's Levine. I think Levine did that one in 2013, and it's actually not bad, kids.
It is actually not bad.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. I don't know where I got it from, but I have it, and so I thought, here it is, and we watched it. Warren, you watched the
university one, yeah,
the university one from
because I figured why not? They put all the time and work into it, and why not do? And they did a very good job. Like I was actually, and here's where I'm going to praise Nation as a 1-episode teaser goes. It's pretty good. Like it holds up with a completely different set of people doing it, and I think going by the original camera scripts and all the rest of it. So they're trying to make it as authentic as possible. But it's still like I was interested, and this is not the same thing as the one from the 60s, but it might as well be. So that says the writing's good to me. Yeah. Also, is those stupid whatever I can't remember what they're called, but the big spiky marshmallows.
Vaga plants. Yeah.
I mean, they're silly, but they're still kind of a neat idea, right? So. And the kind of the intrigue and the back and forth between these guys. Plus, it's the first ever Doctor-led episode, right? More or less, or Doctor-free. So I just that was interesting in and of itself. So I just found it, and it was only 1 episode, mercifully enough. So there is that too.
Yeah, I wrote my first note was good setup episodes, some nice intrigue.
Yeah, that's
kind of echoing what you just said, Warren. And then also it is kind of a fun change to see Daleks without the Doctor or companions.
Yeah, just going about their business, not with that Doctor getting in the way of everything.
Just being galactic dicks.
And not
the kind of deal,
not obsessed about chasing the Doctor through space and time, but we got our own stuff too. We don't need you, Doctor. We can do our own bad stuff. What do you think of that? That's what they say.
Yeah, the Doctor is not the be all and end all of Daleks' focus and attention.
Yeah. Here's the start of Terry Nation's brief fascination with spy stuff, because Mark Corey, licensed to kill, it even says on his little special security service badge, because he's basically James Bond in space. And so there's all that aspect of things. You almost get the feeling like I'd much rather write this than I would Doctor Who. He's much more interested in spies and intrigue and everything else. And I think he leads into that. This is a good, teaser, as we say, into the Daleks Master Plan. It takes place on the same planet, Gembel. It has, it leads into the special space security. We see more of those people from that service in Daleks Master Plan. There's a bunch of delegates, so there's like a lot of like B-movie type of like space opera stuff.
I love the delegates so much.
God, though, some of those outfits.
That's what's so great about them. There's such a bunch of goofballs. I won't interrupt, but I'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Simpsons reference incoming. You could totally throw the Capital City goofball in there and have it not
they're
stand
all
out.
Capital City goofballs. That's the beauty of it.
It's so great. It's like the guy who looks like a Christmas tree, and there's a guy with
the guy with the cloak who the Doctor impersonates
later on.
Who looks like I don't know. He looks like Meglos, like Meglos's mean country cousin.
A little bit. He's made of ferns as opposed to cactus.
And they're all just arguing with the Daleks. It's so good. Like I know it's not meant to be amusing, but I find it really amusing.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I was really dreading watching this because I'm not a fan of recons, and I'd read the book, but I'd never really seen Daleks Master Plan. I was like, 12 episodes, even though I'm watching 6 of them. And then I got into it, and for episodes 1 to 5, they kind of zip by. I got to say, like all the spy intrigue is pretty good.
Yeah.
And given the era, it doesn't hurt that of the 6, 2 of them are actually fully intact. So.
That's true, and they're directed by Douglas Camfield, which means it clicks along.
Even though there's still images for most of it.
Yeah. I love the first 5 episodes of Daleks Master Plan. I think they are great.
It falls apart when the monk comes along, you think?
You know what? It falls apart when Terry Nation doesn't write them anymore. There we said it.
Which is weird, because we've just been criticizing him for phoning it in.
Because originally this was supposed to be another 6-part story, right? It just have another 6-part story, Daleks, write it in. But even then, Terry Nation says, we're doing none of this time travel nonsense. It's James Bond in space, but Daleks. And that's what his storyline was, is essentially episodes 1 through 5 and then episode 12. And it says, well, guess what? The controller of the BBC, his mother loves Daleks, so now we're doing a 12-parter. Well, Terry Nation is busy writing another show called The Baron. He doesn't have time to write all 12. They draft in Dennis Spooner. Throw in the added wrinkle of the fact that this is now going to be going out over Christmas and New Year's, when they know that people aren't going to be paying attention to episode 7 of a Dalek story. So we have to somehow not progress the story at all halfway through it, then eventually wind it back up by episode 9 again. So there are wrenches thrown in there. And so Dennis Spooner comes in to write more, essentially the last 6 episodes.
Kind of Rise of Skywalker's the whole thing now, doesn't he?
A little bit. He kind of throws away all the intrigue that Nation puts in there and brings it back the monk, because he wrote the monk a few short months ago in the Time Meddler, and he knows that character, and then it sort of ends after the monk is gone, and it's kind of disappointing. But that first 5 episodes, like there are reasons for the Doctor to and his friends to be leaving each planet and to be landing on the next one. Like they crash land on the prison planet, and then they have to take off. And then there's a prisoner on there, and that's how they kill off Katerina, who, when you see her in this, you think, you instantly realize why they thought this character cannot work as a companion. We can't do this. We have to kill her.
Kudos for making that realization. But, I mean, who dropped the ball in rubber stamping her being a companion?
Yeah, like maybe don't 4 a.m. that idea. Maybe
she's like,
sleep on it.
I was watching it. I'm like, this is like Leela on Quaaludes, because she doesn't know anything, but she's also not capable like Leela is, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Also, she looks like she stepped out of an Edie Brickell video from like the late 80s.
Right.
Even though she's from the 60s.
Do you know, Stephen, offhand, was it Donald Cotton? Or was he told to have her stay on? Or
who
for
Mythmakers.
Yeah, because as we've talked about before, Maureen O'Brien was written out very unceremoniously at the end of the Mythmakers.
Yeah.
Which was not Donald Cotton. I'm sure of that. But
no, it was Dawn LaTosh and John Wiles, because she comes back from her vacation after making Galaxy 4 and says, okay, here are the scripts for story of the season. And they get to the end and go, what? I'm written out. That's where she finds out that she's basically done. So they were tired of her, but honestly, the Wiles and Tosh era is fascinating. If only because of the ideas that they never really followed through on, we'll make a new companion from, no, after having done all the work of writing that character in, she's awful. They must have thought about it really quickly, though, because literally the first thing that Adrian Hill as Katharina records is on film, and it's her death scene from episode 4. Even before she records anything in studio for episode 4 of The Mythmakers, they've already recorded her death scene. So they've already thinking this is a mistake before they even bring her in, which is fascinating. So it was up to them, and they realized, oh, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then by the end of the Daleks Master Plan, they both say, we're done with Doctor Who, and they submit their resignation. So they really only last one story. It's quite fascinating. But.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Katerina being from, ancient Greece.
Yeah, Troy?
Troy.
Yeah.
Either way. Part of the Trojan War.
That's
like that is so way, way, way far back in history that when it comes time to do this all again with Jamie, in season 4, they thankfully very, very early on made sure that he was, I'm not going to say very well integrated, but at least he was given the chance, and he was, he'd ask questions, and
he catches on pretty quick. So
he does, except for the moon base, because true.
Early days,
but they kind of did the same thing, because it's not like he's from any time recent, 1562 or whatever the heck it was.
1746,
1746, who cares? Whatever. Way in the past. But not, not like thousands of years.
Exactly, past. Yeah, it wasn't going to work for him. So that's why she's written out. But an effective death scene, and listen, the way it was shot, literally, this is quite an episode, because the makers of, I think we've talked about this before, but once the makers of 2001 saw this episode 4 and episode 5, they contacted the production office and said, how did you do that floating in space sequence? Because that's pretty cool. We might use that on this film that we're making. So literally, it inspired 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Which is crazy, because you look at 2001's effects, and they're a touch dated, but they still mostly hold up. And it's almost a 70-year-old film at this point.
Yeah. I would love to see that Katerina's death scene. What a shame that whoever stole episode 4 from the archive to use for that Blue Peter episode in like 73 or 71, which is where the minute and a half of moving footage from episode 4 cuts right before her actual death scene, which is rather sad. So we are robbed of that. So very unfortunate. But Chris, you only watched up to episode 2.
I only watched the first couple,
which is
then
fine.
Also, I don't know exactly how much influence he had, but from what I had read separately, Camfield kind of did a bunch of script changes on the fly.
Yeah,
as things went along.
I think so. Not for the last time either. I know he heavily rewrote Terror of the Zygons, for instance. But Donald Tosh also is kind of an unreliable narrator in this, and that he's sort of like, the way he tells it is basically there's a knock on his door late at night, and he answers the door, and there's no one there but a car speeding off into the distance, and there's a box of heavily underwritten scripts for the Daleks Master Plan.
That sounds a little
Terry Nation.
over-dramatized.
Yeah, and so I don't know how much how much faith to put in that, given that he was the only one around to tell that tale for a long time before he died. But the core of that story in those 4 or 5 episodes are all Nation. Because he's thinking about his new spin-off thing called the Daleks, that a lot of people just called the Pursuers. Because that was going to be the title of episode 1 of it, and where he's it's the Daleks spin-off show that he's trying to sell off to whoever's going to buy it, ITC, ABC, who knows. And it's all about the space service. There, I think that even Sarah Kingdom even features in a Dalek annual, I think in 65 or something like that. The characters are actually drawn up for this spin-off series. So in a way, he's kind of leaning towards maybe this could be kind of a backdoor pilot.
This is also like Assignment Earth.
A little bit like Assignment Earth. And it's fascinating because what I like about this is that the shock reveal of the Dalek is gone. We get one it's about halfway into the episode where he turns on the guy on film there and you know, and kills him and stuff, and it's really effectively made by Douglas Camfield. So that's out the window. I think Mavic Chen, who I think he probably lifts this story up too, because there's that whole thread. This is what separates it from The Chase, in my opinion, is that there's that whole Mavic Chen thread where he's in league with all the delegates and he's trying to get his own thing going here, even though he's sort of in servitude to the Daleks, but not really. But then,
as I texted you while watching, well, it's a good thing this is in black and white.
the makeup is it's a bit much. Yeah, little Ming the Merciless there. Which is kind of unfortunate. But then there's a whole intrigue with that. Not only with just the delegates on of the various solar system and stuff, but with this is the part that I'm most upset that Dennis Spooner got rid of. It's Carlton, the bald guy who's basically his second in command, who kind of stands up to him. Yeah. No buts. He's sort of like saying what you should be doing to get this power. And then, you know, Mavic Chen has this big rant, you know, nothing. And, you know, he's got all this. And, you know, and you will be next to you'll be next to the most powerful person in the universe, you know. And then he walks off and Carlton goes, the highest next to you, and you get the impression that there is some backstabbing going on.
Oh yeah,
but he's gone. Dennis Spooner does not use him at that whole plot line, and it's gone, and it's tragic, because I think if the whole of Daleks Master Plan was not broadcast over Christmas and we didn't have to put up with the Feast of Stephen and New Year's Day celebrations in Volcano, we might have had like a really cool bit of intrigue.
Machinations and intrigue one, which they sort of hint at it. There's definitely elements of that in these first 5. One more thing about that council: one guy comes prancing in like a lizard, and I love him completely. Like, he just does this weird prance,
I know,
which is supposed to be alien, but it's just dumb. It's just like, oh, this guy's the best.
And he's gonna talk like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just to quickly touch on your mention of broadcast schedules and whatnot, Feast of Stephen had far and away the lowest ratings of any episode for the 12, and also the lowest appreciation index ever for Doctor Who at 39.
Yeah, at that time,
ever, even including new stuff.
Series to date,
I think Gunfighters finished lower than that. Yeah, like in the 30% or something like that. I know,
might have done.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. It's fascinating though when you think about it, like, what if we took a week off for Doctor Who? Nope. Carry on. Got to show it. Your weekly show.
Here's several car crashes at once.
Yeah, and you're right. It doesn't recover for another couple episodes after that. I mean, the monk is fine in the Dennis Spooner things, and but then you get to the end where the time destructor goes off, and like everyone dies, and Sarah dies, and the Doctor nearly dies, and like the whole planet dies, and it's just a really shocking end actually to a whole Doctor Who story. And then they go off in the TARDIS and have an even more depressing adventure in the massacre right after that. So it's
episode 4 of the Gunfighters was the lowest AI. Wikipedia doesn't actually say what the number is. It's just that it was the lowest.
It was the lowest, yeah, 30 or 31, I think it was.
So about the Feast of Stephen. Like, so Terry Nation did write this.
He wrote some of it.
Because it is a complete dog's breakfast. It's just half of it is just yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is in the recon or the animation, or just because I watched an animation not by Ian Levine, it's by somebody else. I'm not going to put the name up because the animation isn't very good. But they tried. I'll give them that. It's better than I've ever done. And they have like title cards, so it's like a silent movie. And I don't know if that's in the original or not, which would kind of be a neat little thing.
It was in the original.
But there's just nothing but yelling. It's like watching the Goonies. It's nothing but yelling for like 20 minutes straight. And it's annoying as hell, especially when it's bad animation on top of everything else. So
yeah, Terry Nation wrote the cop station sequence, which originally was supposed to feature the members of the show Z Cars, but they vetoed that because Z Cars had actually finished. They had finished the series like a month prior to that or something, so it would have been anticlimactic to come back and say, hey, we're back. And so they just rewrote it.
Z-Car's producer David Rose declined as the production schedules overlapped, and he felt the festive story did not match Z-Car's tone.
That too.
But Brian Blessed was one of the people that wanted to second from
Z-Cars.
Z-Cars.
Yeah, but alas, it was not there, so they just became just standard policemen. That was the Terry Nation bit. Donald Tosh, I think, wrote the, for the most part, the Hollywood movie bit, and Douglas Campfield also did a bunch of stuff, including...
Tosh should be put in jail for that, because it was just awful.
It was just
awful.
Just yelling. It does not come across well on a...
No.
It's very madcap, and maybe that's the intention. Maybe
and
that's
then the animation, there's a lot of pointless zooming in and out of the characters. I'm not sure why, and it adds to my irritation.
Yeah.
Which is not Terry Nation's fault or anybody involved in the original production's fault.
No.
It doesn't help. So.
Tosh was also said to have expanded Mavic Chen's role as well.
Oh, okay.
Whatever that means.
I call that a draw then.
Yeah. Although really, when you look at the Dennis Spooner episodes, his role is more or less just alongside the Daleks for the whole time. Like, he doesn't really stretch out on his own until he finally says, nope, to hell with this, in episode 12, and then he gets shot dead like 2 minutes later. So there's a great moment in episode 10, though, where Mavic Chen like swats the Dalek eye stalk away, which is like, get out of my way. And the Dalek like takes it, which is also fascinating. So yeah, there's a lot that's great, I think, about the Daleks Master Plan, most of which is written by Terry Nation kids. So
I had a couple things in my notes. I just want to very quickly throw
what do you got there?
I'm assuming this is something from the actual episode, not the recon that I watched, whatever, but I think it's episode 1 when Brett Vion's trying to reach Earth, and there's just a little blinking light on a console saying he's trying to reach Earth. And nobody's paying attention.
Yep.
And I just wrote down what massive dereliction of duty.
Listen, hey, I believe it. That's the most believable scene in Doctor Who history. Two employees are stuck watching a TV while a very important message is coming in on the console. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, and one of them more of a Mavic Chen fan than the other.
Yeah.
And then
I'll wait till you're done, but I have a comment about the actual interview with Mavic Chen.
And then I just wrote in all caps, the space year 4000.
Yeah.
And
it's originally 1 million, the year 1 million, if you can believe it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at Dalek Invasion of Earth, there's a lot of debate over what the date should have been as well. So why not here as well?
Yep.
And then I also just wrote down, the Doctor lands on a strange planet and sees a city in the distance and has to traverse a jungle to get there. ... When
have we heard that before? Yeah.
Warren, you were saying.
Oh, just I absolutely love the interview because the interviewer is the biggest toady you ever met in your entire life. He's just kissing Mavic Chen's butt legs. And in fact, everybody else does too. Everybody's like, this guy's the greatest guy ever. I'm like, okay, where are the guards just off camera with guns pointed at them telling them to say all this? Like, nobody talks like that about the guy in charge. Nobody.
But hey, it shows how well he is liked, so that his turn to the dark side 12 minutes later comes as a complete shock, you see.
Way to go, Sheev Palpatine.
Yep, exactly. How do we know he's evil? Look at him. He's dressed up like a foreign person. How could he possibly be evil?
Yes, a foreign person. The most British possible way to put it.
Oh, yeah. The makeup is, Different times in Doctor Who. Great performance though by Kevin Stowe. He doesn't lean into it. Yeah. He doesn't lean into the what the makeup is telling him to lean into. Let's put it that way. I think he does a great job with it.
I might even say he's at least a little more subtle than in the Invasion.
Yeah, that's true. I just love the way he holds his pen when he writes and stuff, like just between his two fingers.
Oh yeah,
that sort of things. Yeah,
kooky.
Yeah, kooky, just like this whole story was, and I'm fascinated by it and shall forever be fascinated by it because of the fact that no telesnaps exist apart from the 15 that Robert Jewell took of Feast of Stephen because he was in it and he wanted to see himself as Bing Crosby. So it is always just this great unknown adventure. So there's always been an aura about Daleks Master Plan. I hope that perhaps whoever walked off with the 3 episodes that were eventually found has the other 9 stashed somewhere so we can watch these all properly again and do another miniscope. Do an addendum to a miniscope, Warren. We'll watch them all when they come back finally from either collectors or that vault in Australia that's supposed to be guarding them for life. we can watch them all again and enjoy this.
To send Kieran Hyman in on a covert mission.
Send him in there from the other
He's
side.
He's going
of
into like
Australia.
a coloring suite on the strings from Mission Impossible.
Maybe they're in Perth. No one ever thought to look at Perth because no one ever thinks to look at Perth for Doctor Who. And but they've been here for since 1967. I thought people were going to pick these up. They're not in Perth. Don't look in Perth. Do look at Perth. If you're in Perth, have a look for missing Doctor Who episodes. Believe it or not, Feast of Stephen is the last credited episode for Terry Nation in the 1960s in Doctor Who, which means that when his return of the return of the prodigal son to Doctor Who happens in the 1970s in the John Pertwee era, he writes 2 stories, and that will be the subject of part 3 of our miniscope, that being Planet of the Daleks, aka Daleks Planet with some Daleks, and Death to the Daleks, aka Death of the Daleks. So that's the 2 stories.
AKA the best Pertwee Dalek story.
Chris
you are so wrong.
Loves Death to the Daleks. Will he think that still the next time around?
Probably.
Probably.
Miniscope. Yeah. Compared to
like I'll never give up my undying love for Day of the Daleks.
That's true. Me either. So there's your homework for next time, kids. Just the 2 stories before we obviously close it out with the final 3 in part 4 of our Terry Nation Miniscope here on Radio Free Skaro. So until next time, I'm Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.